Yeah. You gotta work. You gotta work, grind, shine, it's mine. Gotta show everybody it's my time. Getting here, you gotta work, grind, shine. Never mind who talking down, cause they lying. Don't talk, you gotta work.
Let the conversation begin. This is Let's Talk with your host, Carl Lee.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Carl Lee, and I'm your host of Let's Talk, Carl Lee. We have a great show, and I'll say it this way. It's a little bit different than maybe what you're used to hearing from us, but it is informative. And let me get everybody introduced here. Everybody knows my host, Carl Hollis Lewis. He's back. And Sean, you and the guest here, you all, because you all are the guys center stage here.
Got you. My name is Sean McAndrews, and I'm in my 28th year at West Virginia State as the Assistant AD for Compliance and Game Administration. The last 5 years, I've been able to go and speak on NCAA rules, be it initial eligibility, the Eligibility Center, transfer portal, etc., throughout the country, not only in West Virginia. But this is, like I said, my 28th year at West Virginia State. I also teach sports law and sports admin at the institution.
All right, thank you.
I'm Derek Raynes, and I actually used to work with you guys many years ago, back in the early 2000s. I'm an athletic trainer by trade, sports medicine. I'm also a performance enhancement specialist. I've got a company, A-Game Performance Training, where we work with kids from small all the way up to professional athletes and help them, maximize their potential at their sport. Among other things, I've been a owner in a couple of different clinics, done some consulting, so been all over the map in sports medicine.
All right, thank you, Derek. Sure. All right, so today, what I want us to understand is what it takes academically and what the physical components that are required, that are needed to meet that threshold to get to the next level, whether that's from high school to college or college to the next level. Yeah. And I think what has happened over time, we get guys always talking about offers, like I got an offer. That offer is happening without necessarily the physical components behind it, the academic components behind it. There's something that coach basically likes, or they just want to throw that, they want to kind of dangle that out there to you. And I don't know if everybody that's in sports or has a kid in sports understands that reality. Am I right?
No, you're 100% right, because I think when you talk about that, it's the combination of both, right? Because you have to have obviously the physical ability, the metrics, as you often say, but you also have the academic part. And I think the academic part, as far as back in the day, it was the clearinghouse, the ACT, SAT, all those steps in order to get to that next level from high school to college are often missing, and then we find ourselves with kids in JUCOs not because they don't have the talent or NIL
or not just JUCO, they may find themselves nowhere.
Not playing, not because they don't have the talent or even the drive, just because they lack the knowledge of what it takes academically to get to that next level.
And I think, this is going to probably sound bad, but I kind of probably mean it bad. So if you're yelling at the fence at your son, and you're yelling at the coach because you want him to put him in, or you think the coach has done something wrong. Well, I think before you yell at him, I think these two guys in the room today, you might want to sit down and talk to them and say, hey, what does it require for my kid if he has the academics, if he has the physicalities and or has the skill to get to that next level. Yeah. So, Sean, kind of give us a real simple kind of an idea now of what does it require to get to D1. Let's just stay at D1 because that's where everybody really wants to go. So help us out. I'm coming out of high school. I'm a senior. Yeah. I think I'm really good. I'm an average kind of student. What do I need to be aware of?
If you're waiting until your senior year for D1, then you really have an issue.
Okay.
Because the first thing, as we were talking earlier, the NCAA Eligibility Center, which started back in 1995, the first year I started at State, determines your eligibility for Division I and Division II academically, and you also have to do the amateurism part. And the biggest thing for D1, you need to apply before your senior year, because D1 has a rule called 10-7-7, meaning before your 7th semester of high school, which would be your fall term for football, you need to have
fall term of their senior year.
Fall term of their senior year, I'm sorry. They have to have 10 total core classes, and 7 of them have to be either in English, math, or science. If you don't have that, that D1 offer doesn't mean anything.
Okay, help for the folks who may not know what when you say core classes. Help me with the core classes.
The core classes are you have English, math, science, social studies, and then additional core classes that the school lists. Computer science is no longer considered a core class. Wow. But because what happened is it went from being DOS whenever I was in school and COBOL and some of those to now it's just how to work a program.
So like Microsoft
Word, so those don't count. So math has to be algebra or better. English 1, freshman English, sophomore English, literature, all those count. And then you have your social studies classes, be it economics or history of West Virginia, sociology, psychology. Those all help fill the core. And what you have to do, it's called the NCAA Eligibility Center. It used to be the clearinghouse. And every school has a person that is in charge of it, an adult, be it somebody in athletics or somebody in the counseling, and they keep a list. It's called the 48H. And that list keeps a list of all the courses that are acceptable.
Okay, let me jump in real quick because this crossed my mind. Let's say I'm a senior coming out of high school.
All right.
How do I get in?
You've got to first apply. It's going to cost, way back when it cost $25. It now costs $100 for a domestic student or somebody from Canada, and then it's $165 if you're an international student. And you have to have your transcripts from all schools attended. So in Kanawha County, you have 8 public high schools, last time I looked. You would need a transcript if you went from Herbert Hoover to Capital. You need a transcript from Herbert Hoover and Capital to get processed to determine if you have the 16 core and a 2.3 GPA. And the 2.3, that's the D1 rule. D2, we have a 2.2 rule.
And that's a 2.3 in your core classes?
Yes. It has nothing to do with your final graduation. It is in those 16 core areas.
All right, so it's so it's a total of 2 GPAs. So you have 1 GPA you need for your core classes, and you have 1 GPA overall.
Yeah, and that's to
but
get
the
you
overall
into the
does
school.
not work for your D1 or qualification or D2.
Agreed. Yeah, so in other words, as I like to tell kids, and when I'm speaking to parents, we're going grocery shopping. I got lettuce, I got tomatoes, I got green peppers. I got to have them all for the salad, but if I only get one of them, that means I'm not eligible. So I got to put them all in the bag.
Okay.
And they all got to satisfy. I got to get admitted. That's the lettuce. The tomatoes, I satisfy the core classes, and then I got to graduate and satisfy the state law for graduation. So you have 3 things, and they don't always intertwine. I've seen kids graduate and not have the core. I've seen kids have the core and not graduate in my 28 years.
So what about because you mentioned like because I know back in the day it was like a clearinghouse.
Yeah, that's what they call the clearinghouse. It's the eligibility center now.
The eligibility center. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's now the clearinghouse.
Yes.
Okay, so you have to enter the eligibility center.
Yes.
And within that, they're going to basically hash out whether you met all the 3 requirements.
Yeah. Well, no, they only worry about the eligibility center.
Okay.
Yeah. So in other words, the admission standard of an institution, you're going to have to go and look at the admissions on the website and see, do I have the GPA? Do I have all the necessary courses? The NCAA no longer requires the ACT or SAT. Division I or Division II. That school you're applying to may have that. So you still may have to take that. And are they taking a super test where they allow you to take it 3 times and take your best scores, or you got a one shot?
Okay.
So you've got admission standards, you've got state graduation standards, and then you have the eligibility center.
So who at the high school level is making sure that these kids meet all this and they have knowledge of all this?
They put at the eligibility center, they have a listing of who is responsible for that, who is disseminating that knowledge to the different kids. It can vary. It can be the high school athletic director at some places. It could be the coach. It could be the guidance office. Jacob Messer, who's used to write for the newspaper, who's now the principal down at Scott, has me come down every 2 years to Scott and go over all the rules with all their kids. And then he also, Jacob Browning, who played with you guys from Logan, he's down there, and I go and speak to Logan every other year.
See, I question the ability of, like, maybe someone in a high school being able to actually know this in detail. That would make me uncomfortable if I'm a parent or if I'm a student. I mean, help me with that. Like, have you run into that kind of a situation where a kid just didn't know?
Yeah, and a lot of kids still don't know. What happens is, we in athletics, college athletics, have done a poor job in my type of position putting it out, making sure the website has it, telling the kids when they sign that letter of intent, having it in there. Hey, did you do the NCAA eligibility center? Putting the different sites. And then, as a compliance person, I give my coaches every 2 weeks the eligibility list, and I circle what's missing. And then I tell them,
I do remember that.
Yeah, boom. I go through and I say, okay, this, and I see issues. And, now we've added sports down at state. So I'm looking and I don't know, and I even told you back then, I don't know who you're looking to play. So you see an issue, tell me immediately, especially if that kid's going to be in the 2 deep.
Right.
And then I go up to admissions, pull their transcript. Well, it's even better now, Carl, because now I don't have to go up to admissions. I can log on to a site and see it. And then the NCAA Eligibility Center, if the kid has done their stuff, I can click on their name and I can see all their core and what's processed.
So let me ask you a question as far as that is concerned. When we talk about compliance officers at institution, as you mentioned, not only do you have to get the grades, you have to do the eligibility center, and also you have to adhere to the particular institution's requirements.
Yes, sir.
So do you think there is room or there should be a compliance officer at the high school level? Maybe doesn't do at each high school, but maybe covers a county or something to that effect?
I would think that each county should have, especially in certain sizes of counties, should have somebody going through and making sure the kids are knowing. Somebody over the ADs saying, hey, did you have your presentation? Hey, guess what? Do we have everybody's insurance? Are we telling the kids the latest stuff? Because nowadays, with the transfer portal, the NCAA Division I transfer portal, which is D2 and D3, if you're a high school kid and you don't have everything nailed down academically and they know you're admitted, I can find somebody wanting to transfer from a school that's already been coached at the D1 level or D2 level or a really good D3, and they've already been worked out, and they've already had a strength coach, and they've already had all this stuff, and I can see what they're doing academically.
Yeah, and that was my next question, because that leads right to my next question, because it seems like it's vital that you have all that paperwork on point. It has to be tight, because now coaches, they don't have to waste their time with you as a high school kid. They can go right to that transfer portal and pull somebody who's already ready and knowing.
Sean, let me see if you agree with this. I guess it needs to be said that, especially here locally, this is going to come down to parents. When their kid gets to be a junior, late sophomore, junior year, they're going to need to make sure this is, because especially now, I mean, in the short-term future, that's a great idea, Hollis, but you know how messy that's going to get on the front end. You know what I mean? There's not going to be staffing. There's going to be a lot of finger points. Your job. It's not my job. It's this person's job. Yeah. So
because nobody's going to want to get blamed for somebody else's kid not making it because of the academic
But it seems to me like, even as a parent, like if you're not a college, if you're not a collegian, if you haven't been to college and you don't have an experience, because I'm confused a little bit.
Me too.
You know what I mean? Yeah. We all been through. We all worked at college level. We all played at college level. So, and I'm confused about this.
Yeah, I mean,
particularly when you talk about the core classes versus because all I'm thinking, as long as my son or daughter, they got the 2.0 or whatever it is, they good.
And I'm reading something in this paperwork that you gave me. That you're saying, like, it says GPA went from 1.8, 1.9, 2.0 to a straight 2.0 GPA or better at all times. So
yes.
what is that saying?
Now, that's the continuing eligibility. Way back whenever you started, we had that 1.8, 1.9, 2.0. But if good standing was higher than the 1.8, that 1.8 kid was playing at Glenville against us, but not playing for us.
Couldn't play for us? Okay.
Oh, yeah, that was that rule that I was against. I'm like, good standing, ours is different than everybody else's. And with this 1.8, 1.9, and it was even worse because back then it was based on after you played, not where you were in progression academically.
So I've got somebody. You know, I've got a kid who's got all the metrics, working out with you, and on the other side of it, I have no clue of what the academic standards are.
That's what I was.
Yeah,
it's as a parent. It's not that you're going to understand everything, but you're your child's number one advocate. Jeez. And really what they need more than anything in these situations is just a dog on a bone, just an advocate who's going to keep researching, keep chasing down what they need to have, keep up with clarity. You know what I mean? Which is hard. I mean, it is hard for parents.
So when you're training kids, do you run across these sort of questions where parents are asking you not only get my kid faster, stronger, but what they have questions academically and all about all this?
Oh, sure. And I mean, over the years, I've outsourced them to Sean. Or I've called, like, you know, Rick's pretty good with this, or Aaron. You know, I mean, they've always been my resources because I don't keep this information in my head, frankly. You know, and it changes. I mean, it's so fluid. So it's not something I tend to keep up with. But if I have questions, I'll find the right person. Generally, this guy.
I mean, way back when I started, the first year and then second year, you remember me asking, and I just developed that list of 10 things. I think Hollis, whenever he played, it was 15 rules that you needed to know. And that was before you got to campus. You know, that was after you got to campus. And now I'm constantly looking at the eligibility center every Monday, and I'm pulling that list, and I'm, like I said, circling that stuff. And I tell the coaches, and some of the memos that I sent to you, I'm still sending with certain things. Certain things always hit. And like the red shirt rule, I just put out to the coaches, here's how this red shirt rules, here's how many season, here's the medical. It's always going to happen in that October. Some of the things come around.
And while you're on this, could you explain what a red shirt is and how it works now, currently?
Because it is different.
It's different. It's different now.
Well, what happened is Division I 4 years ago, actually 5 years ago, put in for football a 4-game playing red shirt no matter what year. So if you're academically eligible, you played 4 games at Marshall, didn't play any else, then you got that season back. But the thing at D1, you have a 5-year clock. So even though you didn't use a season, you used one of your years because your clock is ticking. Your clock never stops at Division I. D2, we put in this year, if you're a first-time freshman qualifier, first semester of college, and you're playing for John Pennington, you can play.
So the qualifying is you've got all the academic standards and all that. So you're able to have a scholarship, the whole deal.
You've got 3 games this fall, and you don't use a season. So next year you come back in, you still got 4 years to play over your 10 semesters.
Okay, so Division I, you got 4 games to play. Division II, you got 3 games.
Yes, and the D1 rule, I could be a freshman, I could be a sophomore, I could be a junior, I could be a senior.
So you can use that anytime.
You could use it anytime. And you'll see it every now and then when a kid will announce that they've played their 4 games and they're leaving, and then they're going to go into the transfer portal. Or they're going to take
that was the tricky thing, because I had heard that, and I'm like, what? How does that work? How is that possible?
At the D1 level, when a kid does that and they announce if they announce that they're going into the transfer portal, every D1 school is supposed to have a set of written policies, and the kid signs off ahead of time knowing it, and then when they make that announcement, they know everything ahead of time. They're supposed to. There's a rule that says they have a written set of policies. And once a kid announces it, then they have to be given the policies of, okay, you announce that you're going into the portal. You're no longer allowed the strength coach. You're no longer allowed the meal table. And guess what? Division I, once I announce and I enter the portal, I can take that money for the spring term. Jeez. Division II, you announce, you go into the portal, I can't take your money until you stop doing physical activities. You stop going to meetings. You stop going to academics.
So I could come to the meetings, I could go to class, I could go to the workouts, knowing I'm leaving.
Yeah.
And I'm still good as far as scholarship.
And I'm still good.
Unless
scholarship-wise, and I'm getting ready to leave and join Hollis somewhere else.
But unless the compliance officer really knows what he's doing and he puts a caveat that says even you must attend all NCAA, including outside competition.
Okay, so
when I put it in that you have to sign off that you have outside competition and the coach in the first game puts you in and you don't go in, I can now take your money.
So to that point, so when you talk about whether the money can be taken, how it can be taken, different things of that nature, that's an institution rule. That's not a Division II football or NCAA rule.
Division. Yeah, you have to protect yourself as the compliance guy.
So, but I'm saying like the institution can implement those rules.
Yeah,
so
but
I'm
you
mad
have to
at
make
you.
sure that they're signing off. They're signing off, and I even have them sign off that it includes that you will be at all meetings, including outside competition.
Jeez.
So I'm coming to you, and I'm like, well, why is my kid? You know he's leaving. Why does my kid have to be sitting through all of these meetings when I already know and you know he's leaving?
Because that coach needs them for practice. That coach needs them to show the school that we're doing everything right and that we're concerned about their academics. That we need you for the practice, and that during those 2 days a week that we are going to use him, he needs to be there. Or it could also be we need him there to film because our filmer can't be there because they're a grad student and they're in class.
So basically, he or she got to do something.
Yes.
What's the spirit of that, Sean? Because you're not signing as many players at Division II. They continue to keep the resources.
Now, what happened was when they put it in, D2 wanted to keep it on the kid because they wanted to keep the kid enrolled until the whole year until they could replace them. That was some of the mindset.
Which makes sense.
Yeah. You don't have the resources.
You don't have the resources to go immediately replace.
Right. I can see that.
So now D2, like I said, for us, I put it in there. I'm like, wait a second. I want to put care activities and I'm going to put including outside competition. And then this way it's the coach deciding, not the kid deciding not to play.
I hear all the time now, this kid is playing a fifth year.
Now the fifth year
How did that happen?
Well, that's red shirt, right?
Does that have to come through the red shirt?
Yeah.
That kid is the red shirt, or that kid. Remember, NCAA Division I has a 5-year clock that it starts as soon as I started taking classes, no matter if I'm on a team or not, and ends that spring after that 5 years is done. Division II, I have 10 semesters to play 4 years, and if I don't go full time, I don't use that semester. Remember when we had Charles Smith and we had him take that spring off?
Yeah.
And then that next fall, he was pretty damn good?
Yeah.
Yep. Because Charles came into my office. He said, I heard about this. I said, let me research this. I think you're going to be able to do it. Next thing you know, Charles is there.
So let me ask a question about the transfer portal at the collegiate level.
All right.
Now, you come in, you are at an institution, you don't like that, you can transfer. How many transfers because again, we talked about the red shirt. We'll talk about the grad transfer in a minute. But how many just straight up transfer portal moves can you make?
Well, everyone's allowed one transfer.
Okay.
One time transfer that I'm academically eligible. I can go from UC to West Virginia State, or I can go from West Virginia State to Marshall.
And I don't have to sit out.
I don't have to sit out as long as I'm academically eligible from the school I'm leaving and then the school I'm going to. Now the kick, Division II, we have harder academic standards than D1.
What?
Oh yeah.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, we have harder rules. We have a 9-hour rule. So every semester you got to pass 9 to be eligible the next term.
Okay, I remember that. Yeah.
D1, well, it was 6 back whenever you played. Now it's 9 for us. Mm-hmm. D1 has a 6-hour rule. So you could feasibly have a Marshall kid wanting to come to us or UC or Glenville, and they only have 6 hours mid-year. Well, wait, I'm sorry. Football has an 8-hour rule for D1. So they don't have the 9, but they have the 8. They have to sit out.
So maybe that's why you don't see a lot of transfers coming from like the other way. You don't see them like coming from Marshall, WVU back to States and Glenville and different things.
Yeah, because what happened now.
Yeah.
And also now, whenever you were playing and when you first started, remember there was only 5 Division I schools in Florida. Now, Florida Tech, D2, you've exploded the amount of teams. And then everyone has, and everybody went up. North Alabama's up. West Georgia's about to go up. All those schools at Kennesaw went up, and they all have football.
James Madison.
So, yeah, James Madison went, well, they were good, 1AA, and now they're the top dog. But you have all those schools that went up. So between us and Florida, a lot of schools that didn't exist started football and went up a level. And then a lot of schools that were at our level went up. I mean, remember Wingate?
Yeah,
No, not Wingate. We
Wingate.
played Wingate, and then we played Gardner Webb.
Yeah.
2 years later, Gardner Webb went to one AA, and they're still there. So the opportunities for kids to go D1 and that money or that allure is greater than coming to us.
Wow.
And it's exploded everywhere, especially on the East Coast. I mean, you just look at the different schools that have added it. Charlotte started football. Charlotte didn't have football whenever.
That's true. I remember that.
I mean, boom. And now they're like Conference USA or whatever. So you have
program's
all
only
that.
like 10 years old, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
It's not old.
So you have all those programs have exploded. So you're not going to get, I mean, I can go through a myriad of names that fell into our lap at West Virginia State or fell into lap at Glenville or Concord because, heck, I was doing everyone's stats because they needed somebody back in the day. But you don't see those kids because they're landing at a 1AA or an old D2 that is now a 1AA FCS Football Championship Series.
So
As
they're
compared-
transferring, and instead of back in the day, maybe you would get that D1 that come from
Yes.
Louisville or WVU back to State or Glenville. Now they're just going for making a lateral move.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
with that being said, so you get the one transfer rule, you get the one transfer, and then you get a grad transfer too,
Now, a
right?
grad transfer. And also the other thing, back in the day, you could go from WVU to Marshall because Marshall was 1AA.
Yeah.
You could
Right.
go down, but you could do that only in the sports of, football. You couldn't go you couldn't go Oklahoma to Texas.
You couldn't skip either,
couldn't-
could you? Like you couldn't go from 2 straight to
Yeah, you couldn't.
FBS.
Well, it only affected
Am I wrong about
men's
that?
ice hockey,
Okay.
baseball, men's and women's basketball, and football. So those were the 5 sports you couldn't transfer in.
Okay.
Did that have anything to do with the physicality of it, or did it?
They didn't want me taking you as the coach and you bringing everybody with you. That was the whole mindset. That was the whole mindset.
I'm going to make the case that that's happening now, though, right?
I guess so.
So I mean, so that was the whole mindset. You couldn't do it in those sports. And remember, baseball for the longest time, we had kids that couldn't make Cal Bailey and were going down to Marshall for baseball
Yes.
because they put that in like in 2002 or 3.
Think about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Think about
Coach
how good-
Bailey.
Yeah.
But we
I
had
mean-
guys that were getting cut, and then they were going down there and playing for Marshall
Wow.
back in the day. But then they put that rule in, so you couldn't go. So, but now everyone's allowed one time. Now, Division I has put in some crazy rules. When you see the kid that's transferred 3 or 4 times and they
Yeah.
don't have a degree, well, that kid was probably not on scholarship at any of the other 3. So then I finally land a scholarship position, then I'm okay.
But I'm going to make the case that that particular kid, that scholarship offer he's going to get, that's going to be down, though. That's not going to, like, he's not working upward. He's working down.
Yes, agreed. And you see it and it bumps and bumps. Now, we don't have that rule, Division 2, but we have what's called the runoff waiver. So that fits that kid. He's not on athletic aid. He couldn't play at the last place. He's had no issues on or off campus, and academically he's eligible. Your AD signs it, I keep it, put it on file.
Jeez.
So, yeah, that's for those multiple. And then the grad transfer, here's the crazy thing. The grad transfer, they put it in. Division 2, once you grad transfer, you can transfer multiple times no matter what. So there's no one-time transfer. But D1...
Wait, say that again?
Yeah, I'm scared.
Once I graduate, and kids...
And I got a year eligibility.
Or 2.
Or 2.
Or
Or 2.
3. Because what happens is you got these kids coming from high school and they got an X amount of hours. And then they got them
Right,
there
I
in the
didn't think
summer.
about that.
And they're loading and loading up. You got kids with 2 years in.
And they graduate.
And they
already.
graduate, and they've only been in school 2 years. So now they can go grad transfer anywhere.
So I can do multiple grad transfers.
Yes, but D1 they started abusing it. So D1 put in a grad transfer progress towards degree rule. So in other words, you got to do it. But the kick in the
Sounds very
rear is
subjective.
this is funny.
Crazy.
They put in this is hilarious. They put in the undecided grad student. What the hell's that? You just go and you're taking classes.
All right, we're getting ready. We're going to take a quick break
My
here.
brain
but
explodes.
This is above my mental capacity, so I cannot even imagine how a parent could actually
That's
manage
what I'm saying.
this. So trying to get to college in any form or fashion is a challenge. I'm trying to contact somebody that can help me with this process, especially like you said, if you've never been to college,
Yeah.
you have no idea of not a single term that's being spoken here today or that you're going to read on a scholarship or anything.
And it's super important because athletic departments have the highest retention rate of any department within most institutions. So that's why this is very, very important that you understand this, because a lot of kids graduate that play athletics.
And if you don't understand it, and you've got a kid and you're hoping he's going from high school to college, scholarship or not, I would suggest that you really start digging into
the rule book.
into the rule books and all of that. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be right back. And this is Carl Lee with Let's Talk.
Contact Carl Lee on email. Let's talk carllee@gmail.com or text 409-422-7539.
You're listening to Let's Talk with Carl Lee. Sponsorship opportunities are available. Email letstalk@promessage.com or call 304-342-8131. For more information, visit WCHSnetwork.com/Let's Talk. Now, back to the conversation.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is Carl Lee, and I'm your host of Let's Talk. And if you missed the first hour, or the first however long we were, I shouldn't say maybe the segment. If you want to say the first segment, I'm telling you, you missed a whole lot of information.
Yeah,
and it's likely that you need to stay here because I'm going to make the case for most people, and I want you to tell me, Hollis, if you think I'm wrong when I say this. For most parents who have kids that are pretty good, good, real good, maybe considered some of the best, maybe all conference, all that, high school, college, whatever it is, wherever there's the next level that you're hoping to get to.
Yeah.
You hear me talk about the metrics.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I look at the metrics and I say, okay, I played safety my entire career. You talked about, your height, weight, coming out of college or coming out of high school. You were set to be a quarterback. You had the size to be the quarterback. I played safety. Everybody saw me as a corner. Don't know why. But now, when you get there on Sunday and you see somebody like a Ronnie Lott, I'm not that dude. Yeah. Okay, so I understood that. If you have the metrics, you have a shot.
100%.
You got a shot.
Yeah.
No one can tell you that you cannot make it.
Yeah.
Question is your work ethic.
Yeah.
Not saying that if you don't fit the metrics that you can't make it. But if you don't fit the metrics, and let's just say as a running back, you better be Barry Sanders.
Yeah.
If you are a receiver and you don't fit the metrics, you likely need to be somebody like
Julian Edelman,
yes,
Don Beebe.
Yes, you better be hard, tough.
Steve Smith.
All those names.
Yeah.
Because if you're not, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
High school possibly could be the last place that you go.
Likely.
And one of the concerns that I have is like when you do go and train, are you training the right way?
Yeah.
Because for me, I ran, I lifted, I did specific stuff for my position. And I did most of mine by myself. A lot of it probably was wrong, but
you was out there.
But I was out there and it fit. Talk to us about when you're looking at somebody or somebody comes to you and says, "Hey, I want you to work on my son, my daughter, because I want to get them to college." When you're assessing that, what do you look at? What are you thinking? And how do you set that platform for that athlete?
Sure. So now what we start with, the modern, really the modern science in our industry now, we're looking at injury prevention, to be honest with you. Because, a lot of the weightlifting's there, as you just said, Carl. We can go push against heavy things. We'll get stronger. Some of this is common sense. Yeah. And so what we focus on now is injury prevention. And me personally, and thousands and thousands of professionals like me, we look at movement patterns. And frankly, these really
help us out with when you say that.
Yeah,
movement patterns. Explain it for me a little bit.
Yeah.
So I do something called a functional movement screen, which takes an additional certification. And what that does is I put you through a battery of tests, and I look at your postures, your movement in relation to how you were going to handle stresses. That's what this test measures. Okay, and we can tell that by the way that you move. If you have movement dysfunctions, and if I have a pro walk into my door, we do the same thing. We test every 4 weeks, and then what that does is it kicks out a prescription, basically a movement prescription to fix your movement patterns. And it's funny, these are also, you've heard, if you're lifting weights, you've heard, well, I got to 300 pounds and I plateaued. Right, you hear that term, plateaued. And sometimes that's a nutritional ask, but a lot of times it's because you have as strong and big and fast as you can be, you have a movement pattern dysfunction somewhere, and your body neurologically knows that you can't stress it beyond this dysfunction. And so instinctively it will stop you,
So
essentially.
are there some athletes who are just prone or just stuck with movement dysfunction that they can't work themselves out of?
No, not stuck with. I mean, unless you have a really like a genetic postural, some sort of a rare thing. But no, you can work your way out of it with dedication. But the thing is, what I find with athletes, if they come in and they have never been in a strength conditioning room, and that's a point I'll get to in a second also. They've only had, maybe their high school coach who maybe is teaching them what he learned.
Lifting weights. Right?
Lifting weights. I mean,
just
again,
basic stuff.
All good things.
But basic.
Very basic. And if we're going to go into the higher level, we have to start addressing, some of these patterns. And the reason being is, when they get to that next level, they're going to be lost, or they're going to be, they're not going to stay healthy. And so,
okay, let me jump in right.
Sure.
Let me jump in right there, because one of the things that I think we all know, Hollis, we can go back to, at state, there always seems to be 1 or 2, 3 players who just always are injury prone.
Yeah.
And when we call it that, like, you're just injury prone, man. It's like, if there's going to be an injury, it's going to be you. You're going to be the one who's going to come up with that. Is that some of that is that what you're talking about?
100%. And it's preventable and it's fixable. But by scaling back what you're doing to some of this movement pattern work, the tough sell with a lot of athletes, especially high school athletes, is that movement prescription on the front end looks a lot more like physical therapy than it does training. And they're ready to go. And when you pull them back and you want them to do sort of rehabilitative correctional exercise rather than this go, it's hard for them to stay engaged, of course. But, I think a good thing now is you get exposure to more of our principles on television, in reading, on the online, on social media than you ever got. Like I like on television where, they'll show, you watch an NBA game, they'll show Steph Curry doing activation exercises with bands. He's doing movement pattern work with his strength coach before the game. And now kids go, Then they come, say to me or another adjacent professional, and they see the same sort of work. Now they're engaged because they saw their role model doing the same thing.
So let me ask you this. So
Sure.
along with this movement dysfunction, so if I come to you and I say, look, I got a kid, he fits the metric. He's a wide receiver. He's 6'4", got great hands, lean body. However, he's just slow. He's at a 4.7. In order for him to make this jump, I need him to be at a 4.4. I need him to be at that 4.5 lower level speed. Does movement dysfunction help that sort of training?
Yeah, I was going to ask that
Let me
too.
give you an example, okay? Here's something, and I mean, I'm not the only person that could call this either, right? I mean, so take RG3. When RG3 came out in the NFL Combine. So RG3 is doing his vertical, right? And for us, we see these freeze frames of him doing his vertical. So when RG3 loads to explode, his knees touch. Okay, they touch each other when he loads to go up, right? Which is we call that lower cross syndrome, which means that you're not loading correctly. Now you just think of 2 sticks and the basic laws of physics. If I took a rubber band and I wanted to bounce 2 toothpicks coming at you, right? And I wanted to get maximum velocity, I would have those toothpicks lined up straight, right? What if they're in a V? bent in. I'm going to lose all of that leverage, right?
Yeah.
Because now I can't load in a straight line. My pelvis is off. My knees are shooting inward. As explosive as I am, my metabolic asks in my muscles, the way I've trained and gotten stronger, that's going to shoot me up, right?
Yeah.
But I could be shooting up even further. And also, that sort of a movement pattern is what tells us how much stress you can take. So I said all that to say, when I saw that the first time, I said, there's no way RG3 goes 2 years without tearing an ACL.
Damn.
Already said.
I don't mean to cuss.
I mean, no, I said it,
Wow,
I said
that's
it during
crazy.
the combine. And what happened, he did what I've never seen before or since, which is what we call an open chain ACL tear. He was so dysfunctional from the hips down, movement-wise, pattern-wise, that his foot was disconnected from, and he took a hit with his foot disconnected from the ground. Connected is called a closed chain. That's your
I seen
99% of your ACLs. Open chain just means that relationship was so fragile that he took a hit in an open chain and it tore his ACL.
So an athlete, because we got to remember, RG3 was not just a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback.
Oh, he's
he was an
amazing.
elite track athlete.
At the top.
And could have been probably an Olympic
Correct.
track athlete. So you're telling us that an Olympic level world class athlete had that level of dysfunction.
And here's the thing. It's easy for that. It's easy to believe that if you think about this. A lot of times these athletes who are so gifted, they carry through. Some of these principles were never introduced to them. No one thought they ever needed to be.
I don't think they're introduced to
Let me
anybody.
give you this story, okay?
Wow.
And this is a personal story. So I had always had some hamstrings. My hamstrings were tight and all of this. And when I was playing chiropractor and all that kind of stuff, that really wasn't
Just
like
getting started.
Yeah, that was like, that ain't real.
Yeah.
Like you don't
They ain't
need
even doctors. They done that.
none of that. So I ended up, a friend of mine said, hey, you should go to this chiropractor and get checked. All right, so I go. They put me on the table, flip me over. So now I'm upside down. I end up having my hips were like tilted.
Yeah.
So one's shorter, one's longer. That one that is being stretched is the one that I'm bothered by right now. And I'm like thinking, like, how do you even, like, how do you see that? And then they pushed and worked and twisted and turned and got me back in. I had not had another hamstring pull after that.
Yeah. And I got a similar story too, and this is personal to Coach Lee. Coach Lee taught me how to run because I was a flat-footed runner, and I always had ankle problems my whole life growing up. Ever since I was a little kid, I always had ankle problems. And I remember you told me get on your toes, get on my toes. And again, I was never going to be a 4'4", 4'5", or even 4'6" for that matter guy. But ever since then, I never had another ankle problem. After that,
Also could have saved you a catastrophic injury.
Yeah.
Think about this. Think about two things that come to mind based on that, Hollis. And I mean, these are sort of related to movement pattern, but to your point just now, I think of two people, Tua Tagovailoa and Kevin Durant. Okay, both had high ankle sprains. All right, in different sports, different seasons. Those high ankle sprains, in my opinion, were, I mean, I don't want to use a strong word like mismanaged, because at that level, as you all know, the medical staff, the coaching staff, not everybody just has their own. It's a give and take, a tug. When I believe both of those were returned too early from the respective injury. I mean, we have our, everybody's injury is different, return times are different, but they really exceeded the expectation, of the time that they would be out. And of course, what happens to Tua comes back, hip dislocation within, I forget how many games, but it was enough to where clearly that unreadiness contributed to his hip dislocation and has plagued him since. Kevin Durant comes back from the same injury, could have been a 6 to 8 week injury. I think they brought him back after 4 weeks. What's he do? Snaps an Achilles. Wasn't it the first game back? First or second game?
It was quick. It was really quick.
Now, if I'm sitting at home and I can see that, then those are as clear examples as you can get on how not only how movement patterns affect it, but how the symmetry affects it. You were talking about you had an asymmetry in your pelvis.
Right.
They fix the asymmetry that corrects the dysfunction.
Right. But and here's what I think people see when they watch those injuries, because again, you can be the biggest fan, you could have played as much basketball that you wanted, but you don't really know what's happening.
Right.
Players want to get back. They do not want to not play. And it's hard for management, which is their business, to say, man, look, I think you need to be out another 2 weeks, another 3 weeks. What they're going to say is, look, we'll tape it, we'll wrap it, we'll do all these kinds of things, and we're going to let you go. And then once you go, and there's that injury, you're like, man, I probably should have listened.
So let me ask you this: as far as, because again, I want to get your information as far as working with professional athletes, working with college to professional, getting ready. But before I ask that, if you have a high school kid now, you have a football, basketball, swimming, whatever. What you're saying to me is like, instead of maybe taking that kid to, or in addition to taking that kid to that strength and conditioning, that trainer, getting his footwork and all that sort of thing, you suggest that they would come to you in order to get corrected. Is that what you're saying?
Or I mean, you can go to a physical therapist. You can go.
Because I think a lot of parents don't think like that. I'm just thinking like,
all they see is weight room.
Yeah, but it's similar to the grades. Yeah. It's like I needed my baby got a 3.0, so we good, and my baby runs the 4.4, so we good. But they're not thinking about kind of the other side.
Injury prevention.
And they don't think of it in terms of all of this goes away without durability, correct?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You have a big, strong athlete. You can't keep him on the field. What does any of that make any difference? His eligibility doesn't even matter anymore.
Yeah. And
so
again,
you start there and move, and correcting movement and postural issues, you can't reach your full potential in training anyway if those aren't sound. And the problem, like you said, Hollis, a lot of people don't know what they don't know. Yeah. I think that's why we're here doing the podcast, right?
So your work, because I know, and you could add on, but I know you work with several like UC athletes, and you've helped some of them actually get free agent drills. I don't know. But a couple of them was drafted, right?
Sure.
Yeah. So when I'm coming out of UC State, Glenville, particularly, I'm just focusing on our level in the MEC. What does it take physically to make that jump?
Well, so I work with a company. I think how to start this, Hollis. I work with a company called Beyond Sports Network, and what we do is we put on a combine, same place as the NFL, same time, different facility, but we take the next tier of athletes and we test them, right? And so we standardize our tests the same way the NFL does, so that they have reliable data. Because once we found out about 5 or 6 years ago that on any given Sunday, the NFL's 53-man roster, during the regular season, is comprised by somewhere between 50 and 54% undrafted free agents.
Wow!
So once those advanced metrics came out, our business had an uptick because now they want data on these guys who are diamonds in the rough. But my point, I said all that to say, it's not hard to find the demands of these tests, and they are the gold standard exams. You know what I mean? A big misconception about the combine is, you hear people say, well, these drills don't translate to the football field. But what they forget is those drills weren't developed for football necessarily. What they were developed, they're muscle physiology tests.
Yes.
Right. So we're testing your basic capabilities in muscle physiology. And if you talk to NFL agents, what they'll tell you is we're not hanging someone on the difference between a 4.5 and a 4.3. What we're doing is we're filtering people into categories and eliminating people. Right. And then we look at the film. We don't take combine gyms, and you'll hear that, a lot of narratives and whatnot, but that's the way that it functions. And so what you can do is, as an athlete transitioning, you wonder where you stand, you can go test yourself using these standardized methods. They're available. You can even go, there are plenty of facilities.
And those metrics are 225 to 40 to shuttle. And the broad
that
broad
225
jump,
has to,
and
you
the
kind of have to
vertical jump.
adjust that for some age groups.
Oh, for sure.
But,
No, I'm just talking about guys who are in college and going to the
yes,
pro.
yes.
those
It's
particular
225.
guys.
Yes.
So
Right.
225, the broad jump, the vertical jump, the
L
40,
drill.
L drill.
Yep.
Okay.
And
Do they still
I think you
do?
covered them all.
Do they still do the
5-10-5
5-10-5?
pro agility?
Yeah.
Mhm,
Yes.
sure
Okay.
do. Yeah, I mean they're the same, and we actually even do free combines around the country for high school kids that's genderless, and we've come up with an algorithm that can predict about where they can potentially land based on their numbers currently. And we give that to kids that are freshmen all the way up to seniors so that they can come back each year and see if they've improved. We even give them a little report that says, hey, your score is here for this. This lands you with so many stars. You can expect to improve this with these types of drills.
And I think that's what you were trying to do.
Yes. So that's one of the things that I've been talking about. Actually, Randy and I have been talking about.
We call it the athletic performance profile.
Yeah. So we may want to talk after we're done, because that may be something that may be interesting, and have had the opportunity to be at a combine, and then having the unfortunate reality of being the first person in every drill because they went by numbers, and I wore number 1. What I was able to run and what I ran there were different.
Sure.
You know.
Every year.
You know, some
we
people
get called liars every year.
Yeah, you know, but again, training. Once I got to the league, my second year, Jed, oh gosh, now I'm not gonna remember the name now. We got a new coach, and crazy. You know, Bud retired. He came. He had all this running drills. I went out and I really started to train. And I literally started on working on my starts, but I was also running distance. I was running hills. I was doing a whole host of things. And I got there. I ended up running a 4.28 and a 4.35 back to back. Okay,
Coach.
Talk, Coach. Hey, and I'm not
I can't
that
roll
guy.
downhill that fast.
So you ran a 4.2 and a 4.3.
4.28 and a 4.35 back to back.
Talk, Coach.
Now, but I'll preface that by saying, for most every scout except the combine that I went to, I ran 4.4. I'm not a 4.28. Randy's probably that guy that can wake up in the morning and run a 4.28 with a sandwich in his hand.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm not that guy. But the training aspect of it, once I got to the league and understood the requirements and the work ethic that needs to go with it, what I thought I was doing to get there, now I'm changing that to I want to be good here.
Right.
You know, I want to not just get here. I want to get better.
So
here.
so that does that mean the work level increased?
It increased,
Well, see,
and the crazy thing about it is you do get knowledge, like the knowledge I got on starts, just the simple knowledge I got on starts. Not even the health part of it, how to stay healthy, how to get warmed up properly, all of that kind of stuff. When you start getting that information, man, it is like. Wow. You know, you don't understand the need for that information. And if I'm somebody, I'm looking for somebody who's got that information.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to do this. I wouldn't try to do this high school, even college. I'm not trying to do this on my own.
You don't want to waste your time.
No. Yeah.
Your time's too valuable.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. You know, we were talking about that being I see a lot of people over focus on that 40 and the speed.
Yes.
Because you were talking about 4.28, 4.4. You're frankly, Coach, for most people these days, I think they're putting you in the same category. Right there. You're incredibly fast. Got it. Right?
Done.
Now we're going to go look at your film and see how it transfers. Really, that's it.
Exactly.
What they don't do anymore, I'm sure they used to, and that's where we got this hyper focus on the 40s, is that this guy's a 4.4 guy, this guy's a 4.2. Folks, we're talking about hundredths of a second.
Yeah.
Right. And we're talking about the old. I love the old phrase. He took a better angle, someone took a better angle. You know what I mean? Like his traveling from A to B was way different than someone else's when it's recognition.
Yeah.
So there's this neurological component. That's why reaction training, visualization, vision training are just as important to a lot of this as, say, speed is. We just want to know if he has to move from A to B, is he really fast or is he not really fast?
So just quickly, like, okay, so if I have a kid at State, and I think we got some kids at State now, and I think Sean would agree, when we have at least, I think, one for sure that I think could make an NFL roster as a free agent. Like, what does that kid need to be doing as a sophomore now?
Okay, so he should, if he's looking to transition into pro, he should go ahead and test himself. He should look up the standards for these tests, have someone reliable go out and see, because what we get is what I call a lot of times, buts. Okay? Meaning,
and that's at the Division II level, right?
Right. Well, yeah, because that's what we get. We get a lot of Division II.
And we're talking about the pro scouts saying, but.
Correct. Okay. So, like, in other words, you'll get a guy, he's a 4.35. He's a 42-inch vertical. He is 11.2 broad jump, right? All the way down the line. But he's 5'6".
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's that metric.
Right. And then so he thinks he's great. I mean, not ego-wise, but like, not he thinks he's great ego. He thinks that he's doing well, right? He doesn't understand how he's going to be judged or looked at. And, because that also might be, hey, 6'3", 4.35, his vertical's terrible.
Right.
Why is his vertical terrible?
Right.
What's wrong? Usually it goes back to a movement pattern or some hole in the training.
That is fascinating.
And you can diagnose that. It's diagnosable now. I mean, we have so many ways of attaining metrics, and parsing them out.
Because what I hear is that, okay, everything could be, far as your physicality could be there, like you said, you could be fast. But if I'm lacking in one or two categories, it may not be a training issue. It may be a movement dysfunction issue.
Correct.
If that's what I'm
Which
hearing.
is in the scope of training. I mean, that's why one thing, what we do, we're sorely lacking for high school kids here to have access to real strength conditioning. So a lot of times when they transition to college, they go into a strength conditioning room. They're already way behind if they're in there with kids who have, because just basic management. I mean, they don't know what mobility drills are. And any strength conditioning room worth their salt, they're either starting or sprinkling in, we call it auto-regulation, sprinkling in mobility drills and movement work throughout the training. And if you can gain access to how to conduct yourself and how to focus on the movement side of things and maintain it through your whole career. That's another thing I tell athletes, look, you don't just come and correct these movements and then you just move on. This is what you do. This is your, if you're a high-level athlete,
this is continuous.
Forever. This is what your body does. Yeah. This is how you manage that of your body, and this is now part of your training profile forever.
And is when you talk about movement, me being a quarterback, there's certain movements that I would do footwork just wise. I would do them every single day.
Correct.
And I would notice that my movement in the pocket. So is this something like what Brady has implemented towards the tail end of his training, where he had the TBT method, and it was not so much focus on vertical or lifting this. It was more focused on movement and mobility.
That's right. We have
arm motions, all that. They're doing that with their arm, with the throwing motion, all of that. Right. That is. You can see that is very clear.
Because if you're doing a throwing motion incorrectly, as you know, you're stressing.
But I mean, his whole thing was just it's almost like a total body movement.
Yes.
We call it global movement patterns, and they're extremely important. Wow. I mean, it's funny if we have this interesting profile of I say 4 of the most influential pro athletes of all time. You take Kobe Bryant, take Tiger Woods, take LeBron James, and take Tom Brady. Okay. So now we know now that they're either concluded or on the very back ends of their we know what all 4 of them are, right? Yeah. We know what they are at the end of their career. Kobe, he was notorious for when he had a free minute, he was playing. He trained by playing. A lot of soccer players do this also. Not that he wasn't not that he wasn't in the weight room or anything like that, but he was notorious for I'm in the gym, I'm in the gym, I'm in the gym, I'm in the gym. So. And if you noticed, he was great, had a pretty long career, but then fell right off the edge. You know what I mean? Like if you noticed, in a year's time, he just looked old in a year, right? And then so Tiger Woods took this approach where if you remember, he started to train with Navy SEALs, which is high intensity CrossFit, heavy lifting, deadlifting. He looked great. He looked like a superhero. His back. He didn't do enough rotational spinal work that he could have been dedicating more so than hypertrophy in his musculature that would have probably at least partially saved his spine. Because if he had corresponded some of that training with what he was doing on the golf course, it may have created a more longevity in his career. Now you look at Brady and LeBron James. Both have adopted this early. They adopted this movement quality, movement pattern, lower stress, higher what we call dynamic correspondence, means what does my training correlate to the movement of my sport?
Yeah.
And look at how they manage their bodies and their careers well into their 40s. LeBron's going to go into his 40s. Tom did, probably could be playing this year. Lost a little steam on the throw. But so now we look at those profiles, and those are common among athletes. And now we know, because we have these 4 case studies that have come to completion, and we can look back and we can go, well, this is how they affected the highest level athletes possible when they manage their training a certain way. And that's really valuable.
So,
drop some Drake. This is game
here.
If you don't listen to no other show, you need to listen to this one.
Yes. If you start this show
and
say, oh, I'm not sure this is interesting, if you've got a child that you know, or you got a child that you hope wants to play sports, from an academic and the physical components of it, this is the show that you needed to watch. Not because of me, not because of Hollis, but the 2 guests that we've had today have provided a huge knowledge about everything that you need to be successful. So quit just going to the weight room and talking about our max 300, you know, or I'm so fast that I'm the fastest guy on the team. That won't get you anywhere.
Okay? My baby got a 3.0.
Yes, exactly.
But he got fell in his core class.
That won't work. Ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate your time today. This is Carl Lee with Let's Talk, and we'll be back with you again soon. Thank you.
The opinions expressed on this program do not necessarily reflect the opinions of WVRC Media, its management, employees, or sponsors. Contact Carl Lee on email, letstalkcarllee@gmail.com, or text 409-422-7539.